Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg is being sponsored by OnCue Marketing, Best Buy Benches, OmahaFastFoods.com, Certified Transmission, Omaha Magazine, Monahan Financial, Sholdit, NP Dodge Real Estate, Valpak, Kohl's Pharmacy, Centrus Federal Credit Union, Ideal Water. Welcome to Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, the show that will leave you feeling great about yourself, Omaha's heroes, and Omaha, where we live, work, and play. So park yourself on the bench and have fun. Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, the show that you return to each and every week for 3 reasons. Number 1, to learn how you can take new ideas and information, add them to your life, and wherever you are, increase the enjoyment and satisfaction that you get from everyday living. We also introduce you every week to a nonprofit organization here in Omaha that does tremendous work with people who are in need. And the third part of the show, which I understand is very, very popular, is our special guest. And today, we are not only going to learn how to survive, we're also going to learn how to grow. But who could possibly teach us how to survive? There's just one person, only one, in Omaha, Nebraska, who's qualified to do that, and that is Mr. John Carroll. And John, you were part of the 2002 TV series Survivor. So hang on to your hats. He's going to reveal to you some great information, not only how to survive, but also how to handle these cliques, these people who are against you, that you should never become intimidated. So hang on, but first I want to ask you this question. Have you ever gone into an elevator? And in that elevator, when the door opens, let's assume that there are 5 people there, and you walk into the elevator. Now, everybody faces the door, but hardly anybody talks to each other unless you know them. You know what I'm talking about. It's that moment of silence. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. Now, you're looking out there, and nobody is coming into that elevator, and the doors just remain open. Here's the question. Who is the first one to press that button that allows you to close the door? Now, are you all looking at each other? Are you all saying to yourself, when is this door going to close? One of you, only one, takes control. My question is, as I was going through that whole scenario, were you envisioning yourself taking control, being the leader, or were you waiting for events to happen to you? Here's an experiment I want you to do. When that happens to you again, and it will, you go to that button when you see no one else, because you don't want to close the door on people, and you're the one that takes control. You're the one that pushes the button. You're the one that everybody will look to as a leader, and when that happens, that skill is easily transferable to other things that you will do in life. And yeah, I'm going to use an analogy. You're going to think it's hokey. The minute you do that, you get to go up into the world. Now, I want to ask you this following question. How many countries have you traveled to? That's an amazing question. I'll reveal something about myself. I have traveled to over 76 countries in this world. Here's why. Way back when I was 15 years old, I met my wife Carol on my 15th birthday. And I always look at her as a present from upstairs with a no-return policy and a lifetime warranty. Now, when we were in New York City, I was not a very expensive date. As a matter of fact, the whole cost of a date with me was only a dime. Because what we did was we went to Kennedy International Airport, put a dime into the parking meter, went upstairs, and in those days, you could actually see people going through customs. And that was a lot of fun. What would happen? People would go in, the guards and the agents would go into their luggage, they would take out the contraband, people would say, "Oh, I didn't do it, it's not me," and you'd see them dragged away in handcuffs. And you know as well as I do, if there was a reality show today, you'd be watching it. So one day, I put the dime in the meter, and Carol, 16 years old, looks up at me with these marvelous, innocent eyes, and she poses the following question. "Andy, will we ever travel internationally?" Now, I had a choice. I could have said, "No, we're never going to travel." Well, there's no ambition, there's no goal setting. That's the easy way out. But even at the age of 16, I knew I wanted to marry her. She wasn't quite convinced yet. So I went ahead and I said, yes, Carroll, stick with me, and we will travel internationally. There is a goal. There is a promise. There is a commitment. How am I going to make it happen? Well, I want to fast forward many years when I began to have a position that required a lot of travel. And in exactly the same month where I began to travel, United Airlines and American Airlines came out with what is now known as frequent flyer miles. Man, I collected a lot of those. As a matter of fact, over 3 million miles. You see, I kept my promise. I took Carol to 76 countries. Never told her I'd pay for it because most of it was free. So no matter how you structure your goals, once you find that opportunity in front of you, once you make that commitment, you can and will make it happen. Now, we've all heard of the expression, the light at the end of the tunnel. This is what I want you to do. I want you to think about that light at the end of the tunnel, just for a second. Now ask yourself this question. Where are you in that tunnel? Are you all the way in the back? Are you all the way in the middle? Or are you right toward the beginning of the tunnel? Notice how I changed that. It's not the end of the tunnel. It's the beginning of the tunnel. Because once you get to that light, the opening is there for you. The beginning is there. Most people say, I see the end at the light of the tunnel when they're in trouble. And that's a common expression. Whenever you find yourself saying that, I want you to change that. I want you to say to yourself, I'm getting closer and closer to the beginning. I'm getting closer and closer to the opening. I'm getting closer and closer to relieving myself of the burdens that I perceive, not necessarily have, that I perceive that I have. So the next time you hear that expression, light at the end of the tunnel, say, nope, I'm right there at the opening. I'm right there at the beginning. All I need to do is take that next step. Now, how many of us watch sporting events on ESPN? And they've got this great thing every day, which is called Play of the Day. It is a remarkable play. It's an awesome play. They pick the top 10, and then they feature it. And we look at these players. It doesn't matter what sport, and they're doing amazing things. And they're called the Play of the Day. Here's a question. When you go to work, when you do something professionally, when you do something personally, do you just run through the motions, or do you aspire to create the play of the day for you? Do you aspire to do something that is absolutely phenomenal, that hasn't been done, that will create that wow factor, that will create that, oh shucks, that was terrific factor? Because that's what you should be doing. You should always, every day, look at yourself and say, today, I'm the one that's going to create the play of the day. Today, I'm the one that's going to do something extraordinary. Today, I'm the one that's going to reveal these extra skills and talents to everybody around me. Let's quickly review what we've learned today. When you're in the elevator, press that button. Set your goals and look for those opportunities that are right there in front of you to make sure that you create them and make them happen. Remember, the light at the end of the tunnel is actually the light, you know it, fill in the blank, at the beginning of the tunnel, where everything absolutely opens up for you. And add to that the play of the day. You're the one that's going to be outstanding. When you combine each and every one of these 4 items, what's going to happen to you? One word, success. Another word, happiness. So take these 4 nuggets, put them together, and get yourself where you want to be in the lifestyle that you deserve. And now I've got the pleasure of introducing you to a wonderful organization here in Omaha, Nebraska. It is known as the One World Community Health Center. Listen very carefully. They are committed to serving the most vulnerable and needy in our community since 1970. One World is linguistically and culturally competent and has designed an array of health services to meet the needs of low-income and uninsured people living in Omaha. How many are there? Listen to this. Half of their patients are children, and 89% live at or below 200% of the poverty level right here in Omaha, Nebraska, for a family of 4. One World provides, over the past 5 years, 16,000 to 30,000 patients that have been cared for. They do it through donations. They have long-term plans that you need to understand for health and oral services. To find out more about One World, please visit Omaha World Omaha, oneworldomaha.org. And now, as I promised you, here's an opportunity to meet an individual who's been on television. Not only on television, if you go back into the year 2002, when the TV show Survivor just started, they were looking for contestants. I want to introduce you, and I want you to learn the story of John Carroll, the 2002 contestant from the Survivor TV show. John, welcome to your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg.
Hi, Andy.
Let's get right to it.
Okay.
How did you first find out about the Survivor show? What happened?
I was living in California. I returned back home. I lived there from 90 to 97, and I was getting ready to go back to school.
Right.
And the internet was just becoming this new thing. And I was interested in an endurance show that Mark Burnett, who is the producer and creator of Survivor and The Voice and all these amazing TV shows, and he had a expedition television show on Discovery Channel.
Okay.
And that consisted of 4 people traversing various climates, countries in a 5-day race. And I was interested in doing that.
Right.
And as I was doing my research, I saw this little icon of a silhouette of a male figure holding a torch with some palm trees in the background.
Right.
So I clicked on that, and from that moment, my life took a completely new direction. That little 1x1 inch emblem.
So they didn't come after you, you went after them.
Yes. So what happened is the first rollout was not all over the place. There was a new concept, and Survivor had been shopped to some of the other television networks, and they had passed on it. Survivor decided to, much to their good fortune, jump on the show.
Right.
And so they kept everything very quietly, and the deadline for the video and the application was like in 2 days from the day I clicked on the button. So I had to quickly put together a video and an application, and I sent it off, and I didn't hear anything back.
Right.
Survivor then aired, and I've been hooked ever since.
Ever since.
And then season 2 came along, and now I realized how badly I wanted to go do this show. So I filled out another video, filled out another application, sent that off, thought that one was, yes, this is definitely the one. And then I did not make it to season 2.
Okay.
So then I filled out another application and did another video.
Man, you wanted that bad.
I did. And
wow.
Talk about perseverance.
Sure.
You know. And one of my mottos in my life is, why do it when you can overdo it? So I went big production on my next video, and big production on my application, cut out pictures, used colors. I'm a huge Husker fan, huge Blue Jays fan. You know, was using red for the Huskers, blue, big letters, cut out stuff, glued it on there. I mean, it was
full blown.
Full blown. You could not miss and within 24 hours, I got a phone call.
Terrific.
Went through the whole audition process, thought I was going to get on to season 3, decided to go a different direction, and I did not make that season. So then I, at the same time, had gone back to school, got my criminal justice degree, my nursing degree, and then now I was getting ready to go after my law degree. And I had to make a decision whether to start law school or wait for Survivor.
Sure.
So I'd lived in LA for 7 years. I know the "don't call us, we'll call you" thing.
I don't believe in that.
Yeah, either do I.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and just proceeded with my dreams.
Right.
And with the hope that I might get a phone call. So 3 weeks into law school, in 2001, I got a phone call saying that they were interested in me for season 4, but I had to go through the whole audition and so I had to make a decision at that point. Do I stay in school or go ahead and chase this? So my father and I, we went to Sat Brothers. We used to, before he passed, we used to like to go to the truck stop diner.
I know where that is.
And have breakfast up there.
Right.
And that was just kind of a place where we would sit down and, and have father-son chats and things like that.
And you went for it.
And totally went for it. And I thought that he was going to tell me no, because, you're in law school, you need to grow up.
You're
in your 30s now.
You bet.
And my dad was always young at heart.
Right.
And he just said, law school will be there always.
Sure, go for
this
it.
won't be.
Yeah.
And you'll totally regret it if you don't do it. So I got a hold of the administration of the law school, told them what was going on.
Put it on hold.
And they put it on hold for me, saved my scholarship, and said, go kick butt. And I went to LA, had this huge audition. 60,000 people wanted one of those spots. And,
wow.
And I got one.
I'm going to pause for a moment because I want to have the viewer learn from a summary of what we just talked about. Here's a dreamer. The dreamer got rejected 3 times. Did the dreamer repeat their same process that got him to fail? Absolutely not. every time that this particular individual, John Carroll, actually lived the survivor methodology. He survived one rejection. He then survived another rejection, survived a third rejection. Now, what would you have done? What would you have done? How would you have gone to a loved one or someone that you support or someone that you admire and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go on TV. I'm going to go in the jungles. Now, just think about it. You're laughing with me. I know you are. But those right now that are not laughing with me and actually learning what determination takes, learning what survival takes, you're the one that's going to move up. You're the one that's going to take risks in this world. So let's get to the live show itself.
Sure.
So you're out there with all these strangers.
Right.
And from what we remember and what I see from Survivor, everybody is not your friend.
That's exactly right.
They're after you.
That's right.
They're going to stab you in the back.
That's
They're going to
right.
do everything they possibly can, not only to destroy your dreams,
Right.
but to make them the winner.
Right.
So my question is, how representative is that of life today? And what have you learned from that show that makes you a better person 14 years later or 12 years later?
Well, one is, without a doubt, the journey, trying to get there, the
Right.
perseverance.
Right.
I've always been somebody that never accepted no, and it's the worst thing anybody can say to you.
Sure.
And you always have new options. So when I went on the show and realized my game was not going to take me all the way to the end,
Right.
that was really devastating because it wasn't just to get on the show; it was to win.
To win.
And
I'm going to pause here
Yep.
for a moment. I want to repeat that very, very carefully. It was not to get on the show, it was to win. So how many times do you set yourself a limited goal? All I want to do is get through this. All I want to do is pass. All I want to do is put a roof on my head. All I want to do is make sure that when I show up for work today, I don't get fired. Well, that's just showing up. But listen as John continues his story about what you will do now, making sure that you set positive goals. So let's move on.
So one of the things about Survivor is that there is a certain amount of negativity in that you're backstabbing people to try to win $1 million. I
Right.
mean, that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
It's all about subterfuge.
It's all about life.
And all of that. And it's corporate America,
Sure.
it's dysfunctional families.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of those things. But the remarkable thing that came out of that was I gained a new best friend. One of my closest friends came from that show. 12
right.
years later, we still talk at least once a month. We visit each other. And she was the one who voted me out.
Excuse me.
And cost me the $1 million.
Jeez.
And I'm the one who voted for the other person
Yeah.
and cost her the $1 million.
Oh.
So here it is that you would think the two of us, you know, I'm now 49, she's 33.
Right.
She is a Mormon girl. I'm an out gay man. And there's all these different pieces that you would think that would not create a bond.
Right.
And she is one of my dearest, closest friends. And I never imagined that going on Survivor that I would leave there with a
that kind of
friendship and a
long
relationship that will
relationship.
last the rest of my days.
So let's assume for a moment somebody came over to you and said, John, I admire what you've done. I want to do the same thing. But this individual is meek, timid, quiet, shy. You know the type.
Sure.
So what would you do with this person?
Well, here's the reality. Not everybody can be a type A, aggressive, in-your-face player.
Right.
That's not what they're looking for. What you have to do is you have to be able to look in the mirror and understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. And you have to make sure that your strengths don't become a weakness in a game like Survivor, and you have to make sure your weaknesses become a strength. So one of the things I tell people who are more quiet, you know, when you have the opportunity to interview, you have to take those moments so importantly because you have such a small opportunity to impress somebody because you're not a big bombastic out there, and so you have to pick your words very closely. You have to have great eye contact. You have to be able to see that even though you're quiet, you know, the whole still streams
Right.
run deep,
Yep.
they got to see the depth and they got to see the player that's in there. So Survivor doesn't want everybody to be out there, look at me, look at
That's
me.
right.
What they want are players.
Right.
You know, they want they don't want Caligula and they don't want Tiberius, you know.
Right.
They want Claudius.
Right.
You know, he was the one who was handicapped and he was much quieter and he survived all of those people because he was quiet and he was an observer. You know, and that's how Vizepia on our season won. She was a quiet observer. While all of us loud, bombastic, arrogant at times, people took each other out, she just waited in the shadows.
There you go.
And
There
just
you go.
waited for her opportunity.
There
And
you
when
go.
it came, she struck.
So if you're meek and timid, please understand that yes, you can, I'm going to change that word, you should compete. You should be out there competing against the boisterous ones, the loud ones, the bombastic ones, as John referred to. Because you know what, just as in back in 2002, season 4, that individual won. Because what did they do? They played their strength. And guess what? Sometimes being meek, shy, and timid is a great strength that other people wish that they had, because that is what propels people to victory. Now, on the other hand, if you are bombastic and you're loud and you're boisterous and you're enthusiastic, sometimes like your host is, what you want to remember is watch out for the meek and timid, because they'll undercut you and they'll use their strengths. So be on the lookout for that to happen. So would you do it again?
In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat. Why?
Because I didn't win. It really is.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that I like to learn from my mistakes.
Right.
You know, I find it very easy to look in the mirror and figure out what I've done well, and then also what I've not, and address those things. And so, because I still watch the show all the time, and I see the same patterns of behavior, of disaster within the game, and just think, I would never do that myself. But you really, even Jeff Probst, the host, has said that to really master Survivor, you do have to play it twice. Because the first time you're so caught up in the moment of being on Survivor and achieving that goal that you just go out there and you just kind of lose your mind.
Right.
So once you've already got that under your belt, it's almost like what they talk about, like a quarterback in the NCAA.
Sure.
Is especially Division I. They talk about the game slowing down as they get into their junior, senior year.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the same thing with Survivor. Once you've played it once, you kind of have an understanding of how everything works. But when you get to practice, and when you get the second opportunity, you have to make the most of it, because most likely that's going to be your last one. And that's what I'm holding on to, is that I will get that last chance to play a different game and a better game than I did the first time.
So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Have you reapplied to be on Survivor?
It doesn't really work that way. The way that when they create new seasons, they create different themes.
All right.
And so I have made it very clear. I would go back. There was a questionnaire that came out in January that I filled out.
Right.
And but it's one of those things where you kind of have to surrender the things of youth gracefully. So I'm at a phase in my life where I still keep the hope candle going in my mind, but I have moved on with my life. But if I had the opportunity and I could arrange it, I would go back in a second.
Now, how many of us would do that? How many of us, when something didn't go right for us, and if I remember right, you came in number 9?
That's correct.
And
first on the jury.
First one?
Yes.
All right. How did that, you probably devastated.
Yeah, well, matter of fact, I
earlier.
still get made fun of because I was probably the first Survivor player that cried at the end, and I got just destroyed.
Sure.
And this is before social media, because God forbid, because in 2002, you didn't get blown up on Twitter and all that other stuff.
Right.
And so it was message boards and things like that. But now, since then, everybody cries. For me, it was, one, I wanted it so badly.
Yeah.
And I put my all into it.
Right.
And then I talked about my mom, because I wanted to do something nice, pay off the house and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so as soon as I talked about my mom, I'm a mama's boy.
Yep.
So as soon as I talked about my mom, then that's what broke me.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I got no credit for that.
There
I was
you go.
talking about my mom.
But I want everybody to understand this. Here is someone who, I'm going to use the word, you won't agree with it, I'm sorry. He failed.
Yeah.
He failed.
Totally.
It's about as simple as you can put it. But did he cry like a crybaby? You bet. There's nothing wrong with letting your emotions out to relieve that anxiety. But get back on your feet. Get back and do it. Get back and say, I learned from that lesson. Just because I failed, big deal. Who cares? Who cares if millions saw me fail? Because I'm going to show them. I'm going to get back at him. I'm going to continue to do that. That's what I want you to do. That's why I have John on the show. But I want to talk about a different type of individual who is a survivor, but I want to take it from the human being into the animals. Because one of the things that you are very, very passionate about, and you actually have a facility here in Omaha, Nebraska, is a set of endangered animals that you care for. Explain that to us.
So when I lived in California, I'd heard a little bit of a story about some goats that lived off of Catalina and San Clemente Island when I lived there. Didn't really hear a whole lot about it. Came back. And my partner and I, we had our acreage, and I knew I wanted to get some goats.
Right.
So I started doing some research, and I remembered something about those goats that were on the island. So when I did the research, I found out that they're called San Clemente Island goats.
Okay.
They believe that they've been on the two islands somewhere around 500 years, and they had become their own breed. And the Navy wanted the island back in the late 80s, and there were about 18,000 of these goats on the island, and they used helicopters and machine guns to exterminate them.
Ooh.
So animal rights people stopped them and got them off the island.
Right.
And then they got disseminated out. The Navy neutered the males, so we had no intact fertile males.
Right.
So the numbers dropped. And so in 2008, when I became involved, I was doing some research, and I found out that there were just 250 left.
And you brought them here, and you've got a facility right here in Omaha, Nebraska, where people can go to and support it, which is terrific. I want to thank John very much for teaching us, not us, you, teaching you not how to survive, but teaching you how to go after your goals, teaching you how to grow, teaching you how to cry, teaching you how to persevere, and teaching you to take life's experience and move them even further, and then have a particular cause that you love to be a part of. So as I always say nearly at the end of every show, you have a choice. If you enjoyed this show, hey, that's terrific. I feel good, but not good enough. If you can take nuggets from this show, adopt them to your life, and create a better lifestyle for yourself, get yourself out of that survivor mode, get yourself in the mode of growth by using John's examples, by using the elevator that we talked about earlier, by using international travel and setting goals that we talked about earlier, by understanding the light at the end of the tunnel that was talked about earlier, and by making you the play of the day. Imagine what that life will do for you. Hey, by the way, if you enjoyed this week's show, I've got another great guest coming back next week. And the guest that is going to be coming back next week is going to teach you how to be #1 in the world and to be a superhero. You might have read in the paper about Legends Comic Books, the #1 retailer of comic books in the world, right here in Omaha, Nebraska. And you're going to learn from them why people migrate to superheroes. So be sure to return again next week at this very same time for your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg. John, once again, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for teaching us. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. And once again, take this lesson from this week and stay high in Omaha. To reach me during the week, be sure to take a look at my website at andygreenberg.wordpress.com or contact me at speakingofAndyGreenberg@cox.net. We'll see you next week. Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg was sponsored by OnCue Marketing, Best Buy Benches, OmahaFastFoods.com, Certified Transmission, Omaha Magazine, Monahan Financial, Sholdit, NP Dodge Real Estate, Valpak, Kohl's Pharmacy, Centrus Federal Credit Union, Ideal Water,